YouTube squad, spiritual family, semen retention gang. What is up? Cheers. Doing my morning ritual. Got my espresso. The one vice that I just don't seem to be willing to let go of. I've talked about quitting coffee and espresso for the longest time, and it just doesn't ever seem to happen. I've made it like a few days. I think I made it like up to a week a few times, but it never seems to last. It's funny, I've had an easier time quitting you know what, and being a celibate than I have quitting coffee. I had an easier time quitting opiates than I have quitting coffee, to be perfectly honest with you. This stuff's hard to quit. It's just so damn good. All right, enough about coffee. I got a topic for you guys. So, my voice is a little bit raspy. Apologize for that. I don't think I'm getting sick. I actually hit my Adam's apple with a barbell doing a clean pretty hard training a few days ago, so it's partially that. It's also I've just been talking a lot at my job, so my throat's a little shot, and they're always doing controlled burns where I live, so there's always smoke in the air, so combination of things. Anyways, with my raspy ass voice, let's talk about some stuff. All right, what I want to talk about in this video is something that I have not heard discussed on any semen retention channels. Maybe I just haven't done enough digging. I'm sure there's a video on this somewhere. But I want to touch on the more emotional aspect of this whole deal. And I want to talk about what I'm finding most difficult about it. So I guess we could call this video something like the hardest part about a long streak of semen retention. So I'm on 9 months. So I'm coming here live to report to you guys what, after 9 months of this, what is the hardest thing about it. And as far as the emotional piece, I want to delve a little bit into the emotional side of this, because I haven't heard this talked about a lot. So what I hear talked about a lot in the semen retention community, definitely, is female attraction, is, what it does to your skin, what it does to your energy, to your energy levels, in terms of how much energy you have to do things. Also just your energy in the sense of the way it feels to be around you. Also, a lot of talk about how it increases your discernment. It brings you closer to God. It brings you more in touch with your true self. And there's a lot of talk about dopamine. So these things are all really important, and they're really, really valid reasons to pursue this path. The dopamine piece being probably the most critical aspect of this whole thing on a physiological level, on a mental, brain chemistry level. So this is a level, I would say, below the spiritual level. I could put these things in, at the very most basic carnal primal level, it's like, man, hungry, eat food, drink water, sleep, procreate with woman, your most basic, like, primal instincts, fight or flight, fight, flight, or FUCK is another primal instinct that, we don't tend to throw that in there, but that's a primal instinct too. Freeze, that's the other one. So actually it's fight, flight, freeze, or FUCK. So we have these primal base instincts, and those are really a function of your biology. Those have to do with your hormone levels. Those have to do with, what sex you are. Those have to do with what age you are. Those have to do with your physical health and vitality, what your diet looks like, how much time you spend in the sun. Do you work out? Genetics play a role in this. A lot of factors play roles in this you know, how intensely we feel these urges, and how driven we are by them, and then of course our life experience and what we're taught and how we were taught, and what sort of maybe spiritual or religious or wisdom system we've been instructed by, let's say. All of these things factor in as to what are we going to do about it. We have these urges, what do we do about it? How do we as human beings transcend these things so that we're not driven by primal base instincts, but we're driven by higher cognitive functions? Better yet, we're driven by spiritual awareness. So that's like the hierarchy as I see it. There's the physiological aspect of you, the carnal-based desires. You need food, you need water, you need rest. You have the urge to procreate, these sorts of things. Then above that, you have your intellect, you have your mind, you have your ability to sort of question these things or analyze these things and make logical deductions about things and create narratives. And this is where your ego comes into play, your whole identity structure, and what is life and where do I fit into it and what's the purpose and why do I do what I do, and all of these things happen on a level above that, you know, on the intellectual level. This is the level most of the world, as far as I can tell, seems to be really stuck in, this intellectual level, or even worse so on the carnal level. And then above that would be the spiritual level. Now, just because it's spiritual doesn't mean it's good, because there is the dark side of spirituality, hence this whole spiritual warfare reality that we become very accustomed to as spiritual seekers in this life. We realize there's a very real force of resistance against our spiritual evolution, and if you set out to evolve spiritually, you will encounter that force. You will realize that this is real, that the world as it is does have a way of sort of oppressing you in that way, in that pursuit of growing spiritually. You'll notice there is some definite resistance there. So a lot of talk about spiritual warfare in the semen retention community, because it's definitely something you're going to experience when you set out to overcome your more base desires. You are setting off on a path of ascension spiritually, and so naturally there's these forces of resistance against that, and you'll come into contact with those, and you'll figure out ways to deal with that. And a lot of it has to do with just being aware that that's what's happening. A lot of the power in being able to endure these attacks is understanding that they're simply attacks. They're attempts from the spiritual realm to keep you stuck or to keep you from advancing. So, emotionally speaking, though, we talk a lot about dopamine. So, for us to resist these temptations for a period of time, and to go on a streak where we're not releasing our sexual life force energy, we're cultivating that. Naturally, there's all these physiological effects. You know, we get more energized. We have more masculine energy. We have more vitality. We might even need less sleep or less food to get the same amount of work accomplished. We start to walk more confidently. We feel much more self-contained, much more strong, much more like vigor, vitality, these sorts of things. You know, our testosterone increases. All of this stuff happens. Our cognitive function improves because we're not in this, you know, back and forth sort of like up and down, high, low thing with the dopamine that we used to be on, because, you know, the corn addiction or the sex addiction, all this is like, it's a very extreme release of dopamine and endorphins associated with that, and we can become very addicted to that without really realizing that it's happening. And it's a shame either way, whether you're addicted to corn or whether you're addicted to sex with your partner. Either way, it sucks. If it's the corn, you're just flushing your spiritual energy down the toilet and getting nothing in return for it other than a twisted up, perverted brain addicted to dopamine. If you're addicted to it with a partner, you are sabotaging that relationship and making it very, very difficult for you guys to have any very real intimacy, because you're stuck on this sort of physical, carnal level of intimacy when it's a lustful thing. So there can be an exchange of energy there, but a lot of times it's not an equal exchange, and somebody walks away with less than they went into it with, and then the relationship is parasitic and unhealthy. So getting out of that trap for our brains is incredibly healing. So I hear a lot about that on the internet, about the getting healthy dopamine. So we're not frying our nervous systems. We're not on this up and down thing. We start to level out over time. We start to get our dopamine from other sources. We start to rely on accomplishments in life for our dopamine, which then improves our life. So our lives get better because we're retaining. They have to. Your life, in order for you to actually stay on a streak of retention, it's almost like your life has to get better. Or else you're probably going to start moving back to where you came from. And your life will get better if you stick to it, because it has to, if that makes sense. It's like you need to compensate for that, what you used to be getting through this or whatever, through the sex. You need that fulfillment, whatever you were trying to fulfill that way. And obviously it wasn't working, or you wouldn't stop and you wouldn't go on retention. It doesn't work. You can't get fulfillment that way, by the way. You cannot experience true fulfillment as a human being through sexual means. You cannot do that, by the way, in case you didn't know. So when we stop trying to get it that way, we naturally have to get it other ways, and then we start to heal. We start to become healthy. We start to get it in healthy ways. So that's a huge deal. But on top of that, as big of a deal, just as big of a deal, maybe even a bigger deal, is what goes on for us emotionally. And we have an opportunity as men, the longer we stay on this path, to really do some serious shadow work, basically, to do some serious inner work, because you're not constantly distracting yourself with these like dopamine fixes. You have an opportunity to kind of settle down a little bit and really look within and ask yourself some very difficult questions. Like, why do I feel this inclination so strongly in the first place? And is it really all about dopamine? Is it really all about me having a way to sort of deal with my anxiety? Because as men, a lot of it too is like we feel, the experience we have is we feel like it's anxiety driven a lot of times. A lot of, like, old me had a hard time telling the difference between being horny and just being really anxious. A lot of times those things feel so similar. They go hand in hand, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, and sometimes I'm just anxious, but I want to, as a way to deal with my anxiety. And I didn't realize that anxiety is basically creative sexual energy, which are the same thing, going unused. I have potential. There's things I could have accomplished and probably should have accomplished that I didn't. Probably because I was too busy smoking weed or drinking or doing what my friends were doing, or staring at a screen, or laying around in bed with my girlfriend, whatever. So there's things that weren't getting done. And because those things aren't getting done, I don't have this sense of anxiety. And then I think the solution to that anxiety is to have more sex, right? And then it becomes like this addictive pattern. And I'm either relying too much on my partner for that, or I'm having to get it from a screen, which is just destroying myself. Either way, it's bad. So on a deeper level, though, there's the biological part where it's just, there's energy. We have energy at the root of our spine. We have this sexual life force energy, and it's there, and it needs to be expressed in some way, or else we experience this like tension, this stagnation, that turns into anxiety, restlessness, even aggression. And none of these are positive experiences. So we need a way to deal with that. This is the hardest part of retention, in my opinion, is dealing with that overload of masculine energy. It has to get balanced out with feminine energy somehow. So one way we do that, obviously, is through transmutation, through expressing the energy. So you can do that through movement, through working out, through challenging yourself physically. You can do that through creative projects. That could be starting a new business. That could be writing a song. That could be writing a poem, drawing a picture, whatever. You're producing something, building a birdhouse. I don't know, whatever. You're using your creative energy to produce results in the real world. So that's a way of transmutating that energy. So we've taken that masculine energy and creating something of value. And then in that creation process, we have to go into our feeling selves a little bit more. And then we get in touch with this more feminine aspect of our nature. And these things start to balance out and we experience more peace. Another thing is cold showers, ice baths, just being around water in general. Water being kind of feminine in nature helps to sort of soothe and calm this masculine energy. Breath work, anything we can do to go within. Think about the female genitals go in, the male genitals go out. So we could say when we're going in, we're doing a more feminine type of activity. When we go out, we're doing a more masculine type of activity, just to make it really general. So because we have all of this masculine energy, we have to make conscious effort to do things that take us within. So that part of that is dealing with yourself on an emotional level, feeling into yourself. So asking yourself, on a really deep level, why am I so attached to sex? Why is it that if I'm, say, single or alone for a long period of time, there's a sense of like loneliness or a sense of like missing out or a sense of yearning for that feminine? What is that? Why is that there? Why do I feel that? And then let's say, for hypothetically, if I'm to ask a girl out on a date because I'm interested and she turns me down and then I feel like I've lost something, what is that? Because really, if she says no, I didn't lose anything. I'm right back where I started, right? We all know as men that feeling of being rejected by the other sex, betrayed, whatever it looks like, or not getting what we want, or feeling lonely or deprived of that feminine energy. So on retention, we get a chance to really dive into that and explore that, figure out what's really going on there. What is it about me that feels incomplete to the extent that I feel like I need this feminine energy in my life to help me just calm down and feel grounded? Because as long as we aren't able to access that level of calm, that level of grounding, that level of peace, that level of emotional intelligence and awareness with ourselves, as long as we're unable to really do that for ourselves, I think we're always going to have this inclination to try and get it from a female, right? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be sexual. It could be purely like you just want to lean on a woman for emotional reasons, And so this is stuff that I think as retainers, especially long term, that we really need to start exploring and diving into. So this is where I'm at on this journey right now, as I'm diving into this emotional aspect of things, because I'm finding out that life without sex is just fine. It's great. In fact, life hasn't ever been better for me lately. Without any of that, life is actually better, which is mind-blowing. I'm still processing that. I don't need any sexual activity in my life to feel like my life is full and awesome and blessed. But I do feel this sense of like, I want that feminine presence in my life. And so now I'm exploring that. Like, why is that? What am I missing that makes me feel like I need that? And can I get it from within? That's the real question, because I feel like until I can actually say that, I can get everything that I need in terms of this balancing of masculine and feminine energies within myself. If I can have that peace, if I can have that sense of completeness in myself, like until I get to that point, I've got no real business pursuing a relationship with somebody else, because I'm prone to fall into some sort of codependent pattern, if that makes sense. And then that can be a slippery slope back into sexual patterns that are unhealthy, and you name it. The next thing we know, we're back in a chaotic, unfortunate situation in life, and we've got to get back to God, and we got to get back on retention, and maybe we got to get back alone and be single. So like, you guys, if you're celibate, if you're single, if you're on retention, get the most out of this that you possibly can. This is a really potent time period in your life for you to do some real serious inner work and some serious healing that is going to change you forever in the best possible way. All right, so this video went on a little long. Thank you for sticking with me. I love you guys. Peace and blessings.